Cyclone Nation, what better way to kick off the 2025 college football season than cheering on your Cyclones in the Aer Lingus College Football Classic in Dublin, Ireland? Whether it's a quick trip to Dublin for the game, a multi-city adventure throughout the Irish countryside, or premium game day hospitality, there is a package for you. Visit cyclones2ireland.com for information on official travel and hospitality packages. That's Cyclones, the number 2, Ireland.com.
I'm Chris Williams from Cyclone Fanatic and a proud Iowa State graduate from the class of 2007. No one shows up like Iowa State fans.
And Cyclones support Cyclones on and off the field.
Your gift can provide scholarships to students, fund groundbreaking research. We could even drum up opportunities for the marching band. Visit MoveWhatMatters.com to learn how you can make an impact today.
Welcome to Kickin' It. I'm Jeff Woody. MoveWhatMatters.com. That's it's Chris Williams acting impression.
You're dead wrong for that, man.
Okay, so this is Kickin' It. I'm Jeff Woody. Grant Mahoney. How you doing, bud? I feel like I haven't seen you in a while.
It's been a minute.
It's been 2 minutes?
Yes.
So we're, as always, brought to you by Kelderman Manufacturing, Kelderman.com. We're coming up it's end of January. We're getting into February, into planting season coming soon, starting to make preparations for planting season. If you need anything customized, made, manufactured for your operation, whether that just be your house, your truck, or for a farming operation, Kelderman.com. It has been a couple weeks since we did record, so that we'll mention that right away. Because there is so much on CF.
I forgot how to podcast.
Yeah, it's been 2 weeks. We have no idea what we're doing. So during basketball season, we're going to go every other week because there was, I think, maybe the last time, like right before we recorded last time, between the time that we recorded and we released the show, there was a basketball game. So there's pregame and postgame. And then Let 'Em Cook came out at the same time. And then I think there was a Williams and Bloom that had come out like right before that on Sunday night. So there was, it was like 5 shows within like 12 hours. So letting those shows breathe a little bit, and it gives us time to get the guests that we want to bring. And we were kind of game planning before we started recording. If we hit even like 30% of the list that we made, there are some fun shows coming up spring into the summer. But we're going to talk at least a little bit Iowa State basketball. But we are just coming off the AFC and NFC championship games. Did you watch any of those?
Yeah, I watched the Commanders and the Eagles. I watched minutes of the Chiefs Bills, not because I don't like football, because I can't see the Chiefs.
Sorry,
Steph.
So I think my feelings on the Chiefs are well known. Probably I don't like the Chiefs, but it's hard for me to like put an exact finger on it. I think it's more, I'm kind of sick of the story. Like really just digging down to it. I'm just like, do you like, if I was to give you 2 teams, which one are you going to cheer for in baseball? The Yankees or anyone else?
Yeah, anyone else. The devil.
We're at that point with the Chiefs that like they're there. They've had enough success. And every Chiefs fan's going, everyone hates success. They're trying to knock you off the mountaintop.
I texted my buddy on Saturday, and I was like, who do you want to win this game? And Saturday or Sunday? When was the game?
Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday. I texted him on Sunday and said, who do you want to win this game? He told me, he was, how about you? I said, I don't care. Like the Commanders would be cool. The Eagles would be cool because I'd like to see Saquon get a ring. The Bills would be cool because I said, anyone but the Chiefs. Yeah. I don't want to see the Chiefs win again. If they play in the Super Bowl, okay, whoever they're playing, I want you to win.
Yeah, and they're yeah, I think it's just mostly the story. Like I'm over it. But
let someone else win. Like just stop.
And I was rooting for the Bills because my football team that I root for, it kind of shifts because I probably said this like 5 different times on the show over the course of its existence, but today is the most important day always. but I grew up a Broncos fan, watching John Elway, Ed McCaffrey, Terrell Davis, and then I was a Broncos fan through college, and then you see like KO gets drafted by the Ravens. You're like, oh, I'm kind of rooting for the Ravens. And Leonard Johnson's playing for the Cardinals, and then AJ's playing for the Panthers or the Bills, or excuse me, the Saints or the Bills. And then you start realizing like, who am I rooting for? So then I started just kind of becoming like team agnostic and then just rooting for different players or different whatever. And so I'm a habitual underdog. And so the two teams that I was rooting for this year and probably will next year are the Lions and the Bills, because neither team has ever won a Super Bowl. The Bills are the Lions are like the underdoggiest underdog. They were ass.
Wow.
Have been ass for a very long time.
And they just had their absolute hearts ripped out by Ben Johnson saying, I'm out of here.
Well, I feel like that was coming.
I know, but I hope that doesn't derail them. Because they're good. And Ben Johnson was obviously a huge reason for that. So I hope that they still have success.
Well, and I mean, you know what's wild about the Lions? They had 18 guys on injured reserve on the defense alone. So like,
who's that, Iowa State?
The Commanders tearing apart the defense. Their secondary, it's not a sicko move, but like you'd assume that if you're in the NFL, you are a smart, competent player. And that is true. Like in order to play on the field, you have to be really smart. But once you start getting to the bottom of the barrel, you either have to pick smart or athletic, because and I don't mean smart as in like a dumb person, but like enough experience to actually know what to react to. Where are my keys? Who am I watching in this particular play call? When there's a Lions player that got hurt and that Lions player goes out and they put in a safety. I think he's number 40. If you were to just watch him, he's looking back at the sideline and then going like gesturing up like 2 yards. And then you could see the sideline being like, no, stand closer.
He was a backup kicker. That's why they
he's a backup holder. Like not even a backup. He's not kicking either way. He's just a backup
really,
holder.
really loose hips though. That's why I put him back there. It's like you can turn your hips well.
Yeah. But like he doesn't know what he was doing at all.
No.
So like, anyway.
What's the play? What do I do?
That's pretty much what it was. So rooting for the Lions and the Bills. Rooting for the Bills over the Chiefs. But when you're watching the Chiefs, again, taking this like my anti-Chiefs glasses or the anti-Yankees glasses, they're the same pair of glasses, just sick of it and sick of it on either side. To cross the baseball and football analogy one more time, the reason why the Chiefs are so good is they have taken the mantle from the Patriots of being the best fastball hitters in the NFL.
Because they pay the refs.
No, I mean they got screwed a couple times. The first down thing with Josh Allen was one thing, but what I mean by the best fastball hitters is in baseball, almost every pitcher, their fastball is the pitch that if everything's going wrong, they can usually locate it. It's the thing that sets everything else up.
Bread and butter.
If you got a changeup, you got a curveball, it only works based off of your fastball. It's the thing that you build everything around. What the Chiefs do and what the Patriots did is whatever that is for you. And let's take the Bills defense, for example. And before Christian Beneford, before their starting corner got hurt, which the Bills defense was also just ravaged by injury. I think their secondary, they're playing like their 9th defensive back. But they played a lot of, when they had two healthy safeties and corners that could play underneath, they play a lot of too high and then man underneath because they feel like they could get a pass rush with their defensive line and then let those safeties just play all over the place. When they lose one of their safeties, well, they started playing one high and bringing some extra pressure. So the Bills' defensive fastball was occasional pressure, but cover one, man underneath. That's the thing that they were the best at. The Chiefs ran plays to combat that. Is even when their starter was in, they're running Worthy all the way across the field. They're getting Travis Kelce one-on-one with a linebacker who he's more athletic than. They're getting Kareem Hunt out of the backfield. They're taking whatever that defense is, and they're running plays to attack that defense so that you have to get out of that defense. If your changeup is good enough to beat them, they'll live with it. But they're going to take away on offense what your defensive fastball is. Flip that to the other side. Steve Spagnuolo might be the best defensive coordinator in NFL history. Like Bill Belichick.
In NFL history, that's a bold take.
He's the only coordinator to have ever won 4 Super Bowls, and he's now won it with 2 different teams. If he wins this, he would have 5 Super Bowls, 4 with the Chiefs and 1 with the New York Giants, who beat the Patriots when in the second time they had played him. That would be 5 Super Bowls as a defensive coordinator. I mean, at this point, he's in the conversation for best defensive coordinator of all time. And why? It's the same fastball thing. What is the Bills' fastball? It's Josh Allen running the ball. It's commanding the line of scrimmage with Josh Allen. Anybody else can beat us. Not that. Is your changeup good enough to beat us? Can you throw the ball around the yard and beat man coverage with your wide receivers? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Can you run the ball, and can you trust running the ball again and again and again? They make you beat them with your second or third or fourth best option. If you can do that, great. The only other way to beat them, which I think would be really interesting with the Eagles, is if your fastball is 110 miles an hour and you can't touch it anyway, the Eagles running game with Saquon and that offensive line and Jalen Hurts being a dude that squats 700 pounds and tight ends all over the place and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith that can win one-on-one, their fastball is exactly what the Chiefs struggle with downhill running. This matchup, but like when you're watching the Chiefs, they're the best fastball hitters in football, and that's what the Patriots did. They attacked you where you're weak. It's exactly what the Chiefs have started to do, and it's, as much as I hate it because it's rooting for the Yankees, it's impressive to watch, but freaking frustrating.
You've gone soft on me, Jeff. Gone soft on me. You're cheering for the Chiefs, aren't you?
Absolutely not.
I would like to see anybody but the Chiefs win, but I would like to see Saquon. I think Jalen Hurts is a good dude.
Yeah.
I drafted my fantasy team this year because I was like, you know what? He is a leader in the locker room. He's a dog I want on my team. Obviously, you don't have locker rooms in fantasy football, but that's the kind of leader I want on my team. But Saquon.
Drafting your fantasy football team based on locker room continuity.
Yep. Oh, that guy. He might be a cancer to the squad. Get him out of here. Don't want him. But Saquon, I mean, he's had such a cool story that he's been a dog his whole career, but on just shit teams. And
with a shit stadium.
Shit stadium. So now he's, and he's gotten hurt. He's gotten hurt for most of his career. So now he's behind a passionate fan base, has a really good offensive line, and he's able to really showcase himself. And he is the story to me, because without him, the Eagles wouldn't be as good, but he has played so well this year.
Oh, yeah.
He has to be in the running for offensive MVP.
You know what's amazing too? And I think it feels like to me the quarterback bubble, which Brock might be like the last generation of guys that can get a big contract, but it feels like the quarterback bubble's popping a little bit.
Tell me about that.
In that, if you have Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes or a guy that is at the top, Lamar, a very tip-top guy, Josh Allen, those guys that are MVP candidates. If you have a Dak Prescott, if you have a Daniel Jones, if you have a Sam Darnold, a good player that fit
take down. He's a backup now. Get him out of there.
No, but like at the time,
at one point, Danny Dimes,
a good player within the system.
All right.
If you pay him $50 million a year, you then can't build a roster around him.
Yeah.
And because of that, running back values are substantially lower. Gabe Davis, the guy who scored 4 touchdowns in that 2022 game or whatever, that played for the Bills, big game Gabe or whatever, his contract when he went to sign with the Jaguars was bigger than Saquon Barkley's with the Eagles. He was a wide receiver.
Hey, he struck while the iron was hot.
Yeah. Good for Gabe Davis, but it feels like the contract values of guys like Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, again, that's sort of like the equivalent of the Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes level of talent. But like a James Cook, a guy like that who's a top 5 running back is worth more to your offensive production than an average quarterback. So it feels like the tide is turning a little bit, and Saquon being kind of the spear behind this of saying like, you have Patrick Mahomes, that's the star you build your offense around. Saquon Barkley is the star that you build this Eagles offense around. And this was not for nothing. We were talking about Romo and Brady being the back-to-back color or analysts for the game. Brady's just really young. Like young. He's green.
He's green to the broadcast booth.
And when you listen to those two guys, the difference between them is really impressive. For Romo's and Brady will get better. But the thing that I wanted Tom to say is when you watch a running back or a running game generally, the first 5 yards of that play is team running. That is where your running back is being, whether it has continuity or not with the offensive line, with the tight ends. Is he setting up his blocks? Are the offensive linemen, tight ends, are they executing those blocks the way they need to? The first 5 yards is like the delicate Everything has to hit more or less in the right spot. Everything from 5 yards on is wide receiver downfield blocking and the running back being a dude. Like that is where the running back makes his money in the open space stuff. You have to be a good team player for your first 5 yards and then a freak for the last however many it is. Saquon is the best, and Derrick Henry are the best balance of those two. And that first touchdown that Saquon scored,
nasty.
Unreal. Like nothing was there, and then he just made it into something. So the first 5 yards, he would have gotten, if the guy who was unblocked hit him and tackled him, 4 yard gain. Great, awesome. Just gone.
He looked like, when a college team has a dude who's just like, oh, that's an NFL guy. He looked like, oh, that guy's a dude. He is a whatever is above NFL. He is the best guy in the field right now. And he was.
He was. And
he has been for the last 4 or 5 games.
Yeah. And
most of the season, but he's been just killing it recently.
And the thing that's really cool about the Eagles, and I think with this Super Bowl matchup, that's going to be really, really interesting to watch, is because Saquon is so good. Another thing that the Chiefs have, I think the Chiefs have the best linebackers, Sam Mike Will, between Tranquil, Bolton is at 32, and then Leo Chenal. I think those are those 3 linebackers. To me, they're the best 1, 2, 3 in the NFL because they're super athletic, strong as shit. They can cover. But you got to tackle Saquon in space. And now you're going to probably have to put somebody else in the box because they are so physical, which means man-to-man on Devontae Smith and man-to-man on A.J. Brown. Can you win that battle and win the battle against Saquon? I don't know. We'll see. The Super Bowl is interesting.
I hope not. I hope Saquon wins that.
I do too.
How do you feel if you were like Jerry Jones, where Kellen Moore was your offensive coordinator last year? He leaves the Cowboys. The Cowboys are just trash. Goes to the Eagles, might win a Super Bowl now.
Man.
And now he might be in the running for head coach somewhere.
Is Jared, didn't they internally promote too from a bad team? I think Schottenheimer, like Marty Schottenheimer's son or grandson.
I don't know who the Cowboys hired.
I think Brian Schottenheimer.
It's a Schottenheimer. I don't know who he hired though.
There can't be that many Schottenheimers out there.
It's either his son or his grandson.
He's been an assistant for something ridiculous, like close to 30 years.
It's not the Schottenheimer you think. When it's Brian Schottenheimer is who they hired.
And Marty is the one that got fired at 14-2 for the Chargers.
But I think who's the Schottenheimer that's on like ESPN?
What? There's no Schottenheimer on ESPN.
Oh wow. Am I spreading fake information right now?
Fake news.
Yeah, his dad is Marty.
Yeah. His dad is Marty. Are you talking about a Schlereth?
Maybe.
That's an offensive lineman.
Mark Schlereth.
Nickname Stink. That's a nickname. Stink and then Booger McFarland. Which one is worse, Stink or Booger?
Well, Booger is that's what everyone calls him.
I think everyone calls Schlereth Stink as
Really?
well. Like
Okay.
not like on air,
Right.
but even sometimes on air. Like if he's on Rich Eisen or something like that, it'll be like, now we got so Stink. What do you think?
Like, Stank.
Like I don't know. Would you rather be Stink or Booger?
I want to know where that came from.
I don't.
Would you rather be Stank, Booger, or Fermunda? Which one do you want?
I feel like Fermunda is very specific.
Yeah.
Like Booger, I don't know. You could be
Booger's pretty specific.
but you could be like
you can't have boogers coming out of your butt.
But you could be like a 6-year-old, you little booger, like that kind of thing.
Oh,
Is
like
just
a
kind of stuck.
playful. You green blob.
Yeah. Stink. I feel like you little stinker, and then you could be Stink, but like
multiple things could be stinky.
Fermunda, that is.
You start getting to like Fermunda, Dingleberry range, like that's specific. that is one region.
That is exactly. It has. We have one source on that. I don't know that there's no transition out of that. But the other thing about the NFC Championship game that I wanted to talk about, and we couldn't pull the audio because YouTube will copyright it. One of my favorite things that I've watched that made me laugh out loud was the tush push at the goal line experience that there was. And were you watching this or no?
Which game? Because the
Commanders Eagles
run 100 times a game. Not really, but yeah, and
it's great fun.
They're so efficient at it.
Great fun.
They line up and they basically tell the defense, hey, we're gonna run right here. You can't do anything about it, and the defense can't.
Yeah. So did you watch the I think it was right at the point, maybe third or fourth quarter. I think it was the fourth quarter, start of the fourth. Anyway.
I'm not gonna lie to you. So I didn't watch much of the Chiefs Bills game. I watched a lot of the first half of the Commanders Eagles.
Okay.
But I was reading a book in between, kind of had on the background, and doing chores and stuff.
Okay.
Like doing laundry. So off and on. My goal this year is to read 12 books.
Okay.
And so
how far are you?
I've got about 90 pages to go to finish
Eat, Pray, Love?
book 1. No.
It's Eat, Pray, Love, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Sister of the Traveling Pants?
No, it's a book called Why Emotions Matter.
Oh.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if I've necessarily read that.
Really great book. I would.
I think Emotive is the one that is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I mean, we don't need to go down this path, but it's a really good book for. I mean, as men growing up, you're taught, don't be a pussy, don't show your emotions, and this is basically tapping into that about why emotions are good to have.
Yeah.
I'm bad about having emotions.
I have too many of them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
It's good. It's good to tap into it. So sorry, continue on.
I think Emotive, I read a book, similar concept. Anyway, one of my favorite things happened, which before we get to that story, we got to get another shout out to the sponsor, the Iowa Pork Produce Association, doing carnitas tacos later, homemade carnitas tacos this week. So we got at Allspice downtown, the olive oil and spice store.
Yep.
Got a lime olive oil, makes it kind of zesty.
Sweet.
We got key lime juice.
Excellent. You can toss some oranges in there.
A little bit, and I think a chili lime kind of vibe.
You got to have some more spice.
And we have I don't
be so white.
I got to look up the exact. It was like the chili lime spice blend, but we got to figure out the exact the rest of it to kind of make the puzzle. But we're gonna do carnitas tacos.
Yeah, maybe toss an onion in there, some garlic.
Nope.
Huh?
And not even no.
How you gonna cook the carnitas?
Well, it's just gonna be you're gonna take the pork and you have to shave it.
Like slow cook it.
I'll probably I'm probably going to saute the pork, but I'm going to toss it in whatever the seasoning is and then saute that. And then put some onions and some mushrooms in there.
Things on dry, Jeff. You got to slow cook those.
I don't need to slow cook it. You do a really good saute of a meat and not overcook it.
In a Dutch oven?
Are you talking about a fart?
No.
I don't think the meat's going to get edible.
A Dutch oven. You cook in a Dutch oven.
Yeah, I know. I recognize that, but I thought you were talking about a fart.
Not this time.
Okay. But anyway, I'm doing carnitas tacos this week.
Well, I hope it turns out.
I'll let you know. I'll probably forget.
Yeah.
Not forget to cook it, but just forget to tell you.
Hopefully it's not dry.
Anyway, one of my favorite things that happened in that game, I really like the mechanics of hidden rules and also just like the chess match of stuff. So start of the fourth quarter, end of the third quarter. I don't remember which one, but it's at the point when the game is starting to get away from the Commanders. I think Philly just scored to go up 2 scores, and then the Commanders fumble the ensuing kickoff. The Eagles then have the chance to go up 3 scores, or it gone from 3 scores to anyway. There not much time left. You're probably not going to get 3 possessions. If they punch into the end zone, your winning odds go from 20% to 1%. So it gets it is the knockout punch almost. So they get down to the 2-yard line, and Eagles get inside the 2-yard line. You have a pretty good idea what's coming if they don't get in. Well, they went on the 2-yard line. They went, we're going to tush push it, which first thing, that is incredibly hard on a center. That's 900 pounds of dude on the front side of your shoulders. And then on your hips and spine, you have a 230 pound quarterback and Saquon Barkley shoving basically just taking your tailbone and your neck and trying to smush them together.
I wish I could just somehow put a small camera just on his face mask so you can just see his face throughout the entire
that has to be just horrible. But anyway, it's 2-yard line. Really important game. So the Commanders need to keep the Eagles out of the end zone. And if you have the chance to watch the actual, see the full sequence of this and see the officials and the experience in this, worth it. So it's on the 2-yard line. They do the tush push. They don't get it. It gets inside the 1, but they don't convert. Second down. What are we going to do? Do it again.
That's how I keep telling Mauser to do.
Just tush push it again. We're going to go brotherly shove 4 times in a row if we have to. But brotherly shove is really hard to stop. So what they do in order to actually make this work, and they got this from a rugby coach, like a Scottish rugby coach.
You know what those are called? Scrums.
Yeah. So that's a true scrum. Let's say rugby scrum is stuff on the ground. No, that's literally guys putting their arms over each other and the other teams putting their arms over each other. And you just knock into each other. So the center is out in front, and then the guards push underneath his pits to push him forward. And then I think the tackles then push the guards. So the only way to stop this, and then, obviously Jalen Hurts is getting in the soft spot behind either his right cheek or his left cheek, wherever there's a soft spot. And then Saquon's pushing, or whoever the running back is pushing the quarterback. The only way to stop that, you have to do two things. One is you have to stop the initial surge between the center and the guard. So your defensive lineman, you're not going to go face to face with the center.
You lay down like a log.
You like a turd?
Sure.
But you have to go between on the shoulder or the outside, each shoulder of the center. So you have to put one enormous human on the center's right shoulder, another enormous human on the left shoulder of the center. You then, because their guards are pushing the center, you have to put another guy on the outside shoulder of the guard to take some of the pressure off of the guys trying to stop the center. So you have 4 pushing their 3. Okay, that stops the line, but now you still have Jalen Hurts and a running back that are pushing. So you have to have a linebacker come in with some force, and either when the quarterback starts to pop up a little bit, you're going to deck him there, or you have to jump over that pile and like alligator wrestle the quarterback. And you're trying to like a wrestling, like I don't know, like you're on the mat, you're trying to turn him. So they get into this formation and you know what's coming. And the only way to stop it, again, it's 4 dudes at least. And then one guy is kind of hitting the quarterback when he goes. The Eagles know that this is the case. So they just go on 2 instead of going on 1. So they say, ready, set, hut, or whatever their command is. And on set, hut, nobody moves on the Eagles. The guy that's supposed to alligator wrestle the quarterback just jumps right over the center. And Jalen Hurts is looking down like, what is that? Okay, encroachment. It goes from 2.5 feet away from the goal line to now 1.25 feet away from the goal line. And they come up to the goal line and they go on 2 again. Same guy, Frankie Louvu.
I didn't see this.
Just goes, jumps right over the line.
The dude he knew his assignment.
He knew his assignment. And at this point, you've now had back-to-back diving over the pile penalties by the Commanders. So you can see the umpire, who's the guy that's standing behind in the defensive like linebacker backfield. He comes up to the linebacker and you can read his lips of saying like, you do that again, it's 15. But meaning there's a personal foul on it. It's only going to move inches at this point, but it's a personal foul. You get 2 of those, you get ejected. So it's not a good thing. Anyway, it's now moved from 1.2 feet to now, inches. It is 8 inches away from the goal line. The Eagles come up and they go on 2 again. And instead of Louvu, the linebacker, jumping over the pile, the defensive linemen, those 4 defensive linemen that have to stop, 2 of them hit the offensive lineman. And at this point, you've now had 3 back-to-back-to-back encroachment penalties, 2 of which are diving over the official or diving over the offensive line. And Sean Hockley, in the most irritated substitute teacher tone he possibly can muster, turns his microphone on and goes, encroachment, defense, Washington has been advised that if this behavior continues, the official has the capacity to award points. 2nd down.
Award points?
Yeah, because imagine a different situation where you have, I don't know, they're on the...
I'm tired of this. You get 8 points.
You're sick of it? You get points.
Not try to score again. A 15-point play.
But imagine you're trying to get a team to score. Like you're down 3 with a minute and a half left. And you're trying to just get them to take an encroachment penalty to get them from the 30-yard line to the 1-yard line where you can just drag them into the end zone. Like it's kind of the cheap bullshit like that. That's an intentional foul then that the referee can say, no, we're not going to do this. You can't just delay the game so far, or maybe there's a snowstorm that's going to come in 10 minutes. Like you can't delay the game unnecessarily. So this is some like weird side provision of the rule book where the official can just say, you know what? It's touchdown. Get out of here. Move.
That's interesting.
But just watch it was such an irritated.
I'll go back and watch it.
It's never been enforced in NFL history. I think it's been a rule since 1942, I want to say. And instances where Mike Florio, if you're familiar with him, he wrote like, it was a really short article, but it explained everything perfectly. It could have been used, I think it was last year when Mac Jones, the Patriots, I think they were tied with the Raiders, and they tried a pitchy woo-woo play at the end.
Okay.
And a pass got intercepted going across the field or whatever. Raiders return it for a touchdown. Mac Jones tried to trip the Raiders player. They couldn't force it then.
Yeah.
Man, it was like probably close to 10 or 15 years ago now when Mike Tomlin was on the field. Do you guys remember this?
Okay.
And I don't remember. I don't think he tripped a guy, but he was on the field. And it could have really affected something.
And I imagine
that was another time.
I imagine there was another one when, and they closed this loophole, but when Vrabel and the Titans beat the Patriots in 2000, it was like 7 or so years ago, when they took like 7 delay of games in a row with the clock still moving because you couldn't elect to stop the clock if you're the other team. So there's like 4 minutes left. They just took delay of games to like a minute and a half left and forced the Patriots to burn all their timeouts.
People say that's when Vrabel got the Patriots job.
It's doing the stupid shit like that.
To Belichick of all people.
But that was just the things that AFC or the championship game weekend. Chiefs just doing really solid football as much as I hate it, and irritated stepdad telling his kids to calm down in the back.
I'll have to watch it.
It was just wonderful. You know what else is wonderful?
Yeah. Talking to our friend Tim Fitzgerald.
He's not a dingus.
He's not a dingus.
He is
but
not a dingus.
He agreed that Jerome Tang should be in the dingus bucket.
He did. He said it verbatim.
He did.
We already recorded this. Sorry, Tim. The rules.
He basically said that, yeah, I agree. Jerome Tang's a dingy.
If there's any segment that we should actually have like unofficially sponsored by the Aer Lingus College Football Classic, it would be this one.
Yes.
It's talking to Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowercat, down covering Kansas State athletics.
247 Sports.
We're talking Kansas State basketball and football and women's basketball. GoPowercat.
And now we welcome in friend of the show, Tim Fitzgerald, who's also the publisher of GoPowercat on 247 Sports. Tim, how are you?
I'm good. Good to be back.
Tim, I've got a question for you. Right off the bat, did Cyclone Jim Carrey break Jerome Tang? The reason I asked that is because since that game, Kansas State's lost quite a few. They are
lost every game.
13 and 21 since that game.
And in the Big 12, I believe in the Big 12, they've only won 4 games. I think maybe 4 games in conference since then. I might be a little bit, plus or minus a couple, but not great.
Not great. They've lost every game on the road since that incident or that game. I don't think it was him. I think it was more his whole distraction with the huddle filming thing. I just felt like it knocked him off center for a couple weeks. And I don't know. I don't really think it's had a long-term effect. I think the fact that they're not very good has had a longer effect. They're just not very good. But yeah, I think it did kind of, I'm going to admit it. I think it did kind of get to him. This guy's annoying. Why is he still doing his thing?
He's a passionate fan.
He's a passionate fan.
I love that. I love that. But
he's been that way for forever. We've had him on the show, and he's like, I've always been that way. The camera just happened to catch me once, and now they keep going back to me.
I mean, it was a great shot. That's one of those.
And then the next game.
No, I thought it was great fanning. Amazing fanning. He actually impacted what was going on the floor, which most fans think they do, and they don't.
And then the next game, I think I would say hosted Kansas. Maybe it was a big game. And then, was it Raftery?
It was. It was Raftery.
They showed him again.
And
his name's John.
And he was wearing a shirt kind of like this, where it was like a I think it was a button up, and he was just munching on a hot dog, just kind of dancing in the aisle. And it was like he really. I mean, it was just 18 minutes of fame.
He had it going, and then Raftery goes, "All righty then." So it was perfect. But I guarantee you, we will see some camcorders out that are probably fake on Saturday.
I don't think it'll have an impact on the game. I think the game will impact itself.
So what can I ask because we obviously this is Cyclone Fanatic. We watched Iowa State a lot, and we'll watch kind of, at least speaking anecdotally for myself, you'll watch the teams that you have some that, you'll watch a Kansas game or a Houston game that you're going to compete with at the top of the conference. I haven't watched much Kansas State this year. even Tim's dog doesn't like Cyclone Jim Carrey. That's just sorry.
I left the door open.
That's okay. What's different about this team? Because Coleman Hawkins, obviously big name signing. He comes over, super talented. Iowa State played Illinois in the Sweet 16 this past year, and Coleman Hawkins had a really big game. Why is Kansas State so off this year from where they started last year? So like the back half of last year and into the first half of this year, it's been bad. What about this team is different than what they had to start last season?
Well, I think he went out and got some pretty good players, Coleman Hawkins, notably, and Doug McDaniel's been pretty good at times, but they don't fit together. And it's been literally, instead of the widgets sliding right into place, they've had to hammer them into place and really define roles. It's been ugly to watch. They, at times this season, they look like they didn't even want to play, like it was forced playground time or something. They just kind of stood around and watched things happen. And then Coleman Hawkins started to get more active. And I think then, once they started to really take away playing time and start playing young guys just recently, did the guys kind of click in place? And they looked pretty good against West Virginia the other night, although West Virginia was pretty bad. But they finally looked like a team, offensively and defensively. At the end of the day, they don't have enough offensive weapons, and they don't play very good defense. Last year it was better defense than offense.
That's a bad come. So the pitching's not very good, and they can't really score any runs.
No.
So that's a baseball
exactly
team.
They're it's like you watch them and like they're not far off either way, but if they're off either one of the other isn't very good, they lose. And again, for the second time in Big 12 play now, 2-6, they looked good in both areas.
Well, that's what I want to ask you too. Is it one of those things where, because sometimes with all these transfers, it's tough to get them to gel, and they brought in, like you said, the guy from Michigan, McDaniel, is that his last name?
Yeah, Doug. Yep.
Brought him in. They brought in a guy who's supposed to be a good 3-point shooter from Villanova, which is Villanova's historically a good program. Obviously, Coleman Hawkins, couple guys from some Chicago schools. So I was just wondering, is it taken a while for the guys to gel, or did they just miss on these transfers?
I mean, they added from ratings wise, they added extremely high guys. I mean, at Bay Fall, a 7-footer out of Arkansas. You had
who's not really playing, right?
No, he's not playing at all. Onyenso from Kentucky, who's beginning to play again. I mean, it was a remarkable transfer portal class, and it's like a bunch of people with nothing in common, and they don't want to play basketball together either. And they're finally getting there, and it's been traumatic. And I think honestly, K-State's put itself in a position of being known as the school that will overpay. And I don't care if you're in business or working in NIL. That's not the person or business you want to be, because then people include you in everything because they know you'll drive the price up. And then it just creates a distraction. You really didn't have much chance of the guy unless you way overpaid, and then it just emboldens everything else. It's been a mess, and they're finally walking it back, realizing, because they're not alone in this. This buy a team through the portal, 10 players a year, is not working very many places, if at all. It worked for K-State year one, it hasn't worked the last two. And so they're now walking it back, and I think trying to get to more, honestly, what Iowa State's doing. Yeah, you use the portal, but you also keep guys in your program for 3-4 years, and you have a structure in which to put the guys in the portal into instead of from scratch every year.
Yeah, it's sort of a supplement instead of a wholly replace type deal. Now, I think kind of commiserately, you're talking about overpaying for players. You're talking about team not gelling the way they needed to. The roster construction's not great. The offense and defense are a little bit off. All those four seem like they fall back on the head coach.
Yeah.
Now, Tang, the Tang hate aside from the Iowa State fan base, at least a little bit, what is the perception? Because I think I asked this question last year when we had you on post the Tang mopping the floors. And we said, what is the perception of Jerome Tang? And I think your response was he's kind of our quirky guy. Well, now, we mentioned that hasn't won a game on the road. Losers of 9 of the last 11. Won, 4 Big 12 games maybe since then. what is the perception now of Jerome Tang? Has it changed? Is he walking on thinner ice, or is it sort of like, he's still our lovable weirdo? Like, what is the perception of him in the fan base now?
He was beloved. I mean, he's a little bit goofy at times, but he is very well liked. But the honeymoon's over. I mean, you have these kind of back-to-back teams, and the honeymoon's going to end real quick. But I think what really sticks out to K-Staters is, in the offseason, he flirted with Arkansas, or his agent made it look that way. He got a new contract. So now they've locked him in for a longer contract with absurd buyouts. And so he's going to be a coach at K-State probably 2 more full seasons. It's just the reality of the financial situation in which we're going into with the House versus NCAA settlement. So he's certainly not as beloved as he was. A lot of people think he's, still a really good man, but everything you said is right. This all rests at his feet, whether it is, kind of mismanaging how he's bringing players in, not bringing the right players in terms of how they fit the system or coachability or those things. That all, and he recognizes it. That is all his job. But I think from a standpoint of managing the mess that he created, he's done a pretty good job, and he's getting it kind of back on track right now.
I would hope that, if things continue down this path and they keep getting worse, it doesn't end up like a situation like in Iowa City. The fans in Iowa City, they don't show up for men's games. I think because they're tired of Fran. They want to move on from Fran.
Agreed.
I forgot what I was going to say though, Jeff.
You just wanted to get a dig at Iowa.
Yeah, well,
we can.
Never bad time to do that.
Yeah, but yeah.
I watched a little bit of the Kansas State game over the weekend at a buddy's house. I looked and it was like 24-2 or something crazy. And then halftime was 42. So like they crushed West Virginia, who played really well. I mean, they beat Iowa State. So they played really well, but then West Virginia hasn't played that well since. No. But I still think they're a good team. But what was it about that game that worked for Kansas State?
They was by far the most in line they were with defense, connected to each other. They helped a lot better. That's what's been disturbing is his teams have been good defensively, and this one hasn't been. And offensively, shots went in, and they attack the rim. Sometimes they settle for too many threes, and when they do that, they're typically pretty awful. And they've been attacking the rim. They did that at Kansas. They've done that. The last 3 games that they lost leading into this, they were much better offensively for doing those things. But yeah, they kind of found their way. Yeah, it was 19-2 before West Virginia scored. It was 2-2, and then it was 19-2.
That's crazy.
So
that's a good run.
It was a crazy start. West Virginia didn't back out of it. They were down by 26 and ended up losing by 13. So they kept scrapping. But it was just one of those days when K-State had things go their way.
So not necessarily looking at Kansas State, but looking at it from the Kansas State perspective, when you look at the Big 12 this year compared to last year, because you get the new additions, and the new additions from the, 22, 23 to 23, 24, where you bring in Houston and you bring in Cincinnati and you bring in the UCF, it still felt like, based on total number and quality of teams, that it had the kind of meat grindery, good luck getting through a week without getting somebody with a bruise on their face and getting 2 wins, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And this year, it hasn't felt like that, but it does feel like the top of the conference is still pretty good. And we are recording this prior to Iowa State and Arizona, as we mentioned in the open, so we don't know necessarily what happened in that game.
I do.
Grant Stradamus. But what is from the perspective of Kansas State being in that kind of a middle tier where they could play up to the opponent or play down to the opponent? What is your perspective on the conference? Because again, most of us are watching the Houstons, the Kansases, the Arizonas, and not necessarily the UCFs and the Kansas States in that middle row.
I got to point out that it depends on the meat grinder, whether you're the grinder or the meat. K-State has clearly been the meat for a while.
That's good.
And it's but K-State even last year kind of had that feel because they were good on defense. That's what everyone looks at this conference and didn't realize the defense is just absurd. And then you get familiar and you scout each other and it just multiplies. But they're not good enough offensively to overcome that or rebounding. They for the first time in on it, probably Big 12 play. They out rebounded someone last night, or the other night. So it's been the kind of way it is, and they're not built for this grind. And got Iowa State coming up. Yeah, then you got Arizona on the horizon, Kansas again. This time in Bramlage. They didn't play Houston that long ago. Yeah, they've been pretty good meat for grinding as of late.
They got Houston twice.
They do. No, they do not have Houston. I don't think they have Houston twice. No, but they had Houston. It's been amazing. Everyone got the schedule. Look, they got Houston coming in, Kansas coming in. They got Arizona coming in. It's going to be a great schedule. Oh yeah, that's not going to work out so well. But they might be one of them.
It's been interesting with these new Pac-12 schools that have come in, just kind of seeing the schedule, because Iowa State plays at Houston, but Houston does not come to Iowa State.
That's weird.
But then Iowa State, they host Kansas and they go to Kansas. Do you have anything else you want to talk about for the men's game?
No.
Because I want to talk about women's basketball quick and then maybe talk a little football.
Yeah.
So Iowa State women also play Kansas State women this week too. And last year, I believe Iowa State went 2 or 3-0 against Kansas State. And Kansas State was really good last year. They're really good this year too. They're 17-2, I think. And Iowa State started in the top 10. Fell off a while, but since conference play has started, they've been playing a lot better. What do you think our fans should expect in that game? That game's on Thursday, I believe. Should be a good game though.
K-State, Iowa State was one of the few teams that beat K-State with a healthy Aoka Lee last year, fairly healthy. Then she got hurt and came back, and K-State was never the same. Well, guys, she got hurt again. She broke another foot, which has been her ongoing issue. So, it's a stress. So she'll be back by postseason. But they built their team this year with that in mind. To be honest, they knew this was probably going to be her last season of basketball. She stuck around at K-State. And her body's breaking down. So they lowered her load from about 30 minutes a game to 20, and they were still dominant because they brought in some more bigs. They brought in, a couple more athletes, and they can play better a different style without her. And they have been doing that for half a game. She's only been playing 19, 21 minutes a game, and they look great without her. Then they actually have to play without her, and they lost the other night at Colorado. And they kind of lost that identity they've been playing to. So they're going to have to kind of rediscover what they need to do. It's a really athletic, fun team. But it's, having that person in basketball where you just throw it into the post. They got great fundamentals. They know how to score and rebound. That's always a good blanket to have. It's a nice security blanket, and they don't have it right now.
Yeah, that's kind of the fun part with the K-State Iowa State women's game, because it's Lee Crooks. Like that was the matchup you kind of like couldn't take your eyes off of. You said they brought in a couple extra bigs. How, without Lee, do they have the bodies to at least keep throwing at Audie to be able to, slow her down offensively? Because Lee they're both strong. Like, you need to push a car. All right, these two are going to be the ones you ask to push the car. But without her, do they have the bigs to be able to keep throwing at Audie defensively or offensively to force her to run around?
But they do have more size now. How effective it is against high-level players is a different question, and one that honestly I can't answer right now. They have their backup is still the Malpin young lady who is extremely long, lean, and fast. Does not work well in physical matchups, but she's a matchup terror for other bigs. And it's just Aoka's an All-American. She's a special player on both ends of the floor. And even a committee is going to struggle to replace that. And until K-State fully figures out how to play at a high rate of speed, which they can do, which they can't with her, they're still going to struggle.
It'll be interesting to see, though, because Audie is a true sophomore. Last year, she was obviously a true freshman. Sophomore. And she struggled against Cameron Brink. She could usually do whatever she wanted in the post. But when she, ran into Cameron Brink at Stanford, Cameron really kind of shut her down. And I don't know the girl you're referring to, what her measurables are, but if she's tall and lanky and, kind of built like a Cameron Brink, it might be something to keep an eye on. How's the support down there? Because Iowa State women, our fans show up for men and women's games.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the same for Kansas State as well?
Yeah. I mean, it depends. Again, the students have been gone. So that impacts things, but they've been pretty consistent in the, 5,000-6,000 range. And then they really got cooking. And I think they were up around 10K last home game.
Nice.
They had the Arizona schools did their Kansas tour, swapped back and forth, and they were at 8,000-9,000 in there. So it was they do get good support. And also, let's be honest, the men not playing well, some people are like, okay, I'll go to the women for a while. And if you're just a casual fan who wants to get out of the house, that's what you're going to do, and you're going to save money in the process.
It's never bad. Never a bad thing to save some dough. That's all I've got for wins, though, Jeff. You want to?
I was going to move to football just because.
Go on, do your thing.
The next football matchup betwixt
crazy.
These two teams is going to be in Ireland. Both of these teams are going to be in Ireland, and they're going to be playing each other in football. What is Kansas State?
The food.
That's German.
What
Football.
accent was that?
The football.
That was German.
That was bad. German. Don't do that.
I don't have an accent going. Football.
What does Kansas State have coming back? Because Iowa State's roster, you lose Freeler and Verdun out of the secondary. You lose Darian Porter. You lose the two wide receivers. You lose Purchase at corner. But you lose Jalen Travis at offensive line. But you return a big bulk of the production. You return Rocco. You return pretty much every one of the running backs. And again, tight ends, transfer portal, all notwithstanding, and recruits and whatever. That is all still to be determined. You would assume that Avery Johnson is going to be coming back, but what around Avery Johnson and the Kansas State roster do they have coming back? Because it felt like Kansas State was a team that underachieved a little bit in a couple of the games, but when you look back at who they underachieved against, they lost to Arizona State, they lost to Iowa State, and they beat Colorado, right? And then they lost to BYU.
Right.
Your three losses are to Arizona State, Iowa State, BYU. Those aren't bad losses.
Houston. They lost to Houston.
Houston.
That was the one that stung.
That was the bad one. And that was the same week that Iowa State lost to Kansas. Was that Kansas?
Yeesh.
Yeah. Anyway, it feels like Kansas State was a team that underachieved a little bit. So who do they have coming back? And sort of what are the expectations around them going into this next year?
They do lose some dudes. There's no doubt. DJ Giddens is the most notable of that.
Definite dude.
Yeah. And we saw in the bowl game without him, because he sat that one out, that their offensive personality change probably, it makes it more fun. I mean, he's a cloud of dust kind of guy that can really dominate a game. But you do kind of lose some offensive rhythm in the course of that sometimes. Defensively, they lose Brendan Mott, who was the Big 12 Defensive Lineman of the Year, and some other people. But guys, it's the Avery Johnson class that is going to be around for years. They're coming off their true sophomore year. Out of that is Jace Brown, their top receiver, Austin Romaine, who PFF just named whatever that's worth, just named him the top returning linebacker in college football, who's been kind of silent but really good. They've got a lot of guys coming back, and we saw that in the bowl game, in which they were really a speed offense with Dylan Edwards at running back and some other guys out there, and they were so physical on defense because Rutgers was a Big Ten style team, big offensive line, big defensive line, want to play that kind of ball in case they just ran through them.
Now I know Kansas State's got a pretty good tight end coming in as well too. So
yeah,
if you didn't know, Jeff, number one tight end going to Kansas State.
Is he going to stand like Superman?
That's funny because he's from way out west too, like Superman.
Huh?
Lincoln Cure from way out west.
Now,
where was Smallville in the comics? Like, where was that?
Based on everything geography, when they show it and it's a Dust Bowl, that's way out west. That's okay. That's
western
next
Kansas.
To Colorado.
Okay.
Wow, Jeff.
Where's
So they have Superman coming in. Look at that connection.
Like literal. That's. You know what I'm talking about?
Clark Kent? I don't. I'm going to go through though.
If you just go watch any Kansas State football from like 2000, any Bill Snyder Kansas State football, their tight ends will literally stand. Let's say they're in an off tight end position. They're going to stand straight up and down with their hands on their hips. I don't know.
Sure about that.
God knows why. I mean, do you know why they stand? Okay.
Now that didn't last. That went away eventually. But that started, and this is a true story. Your Iowa State fans are going to love this. And most K-Staters don't know this, but I tell this story often. Michael Bishop couldn't check at the line of scrimmage. He couldn't read a defense. So the tight end, Justice Swift, literally stand up. You can, if you find replays, they still have video of those days. We're so old now. He would stand up, survey the defense, lean down the line, and tell Mike to check.
Oh my God, really? They just kept it. They just kept doing that.
Kept doing it. It just became kind of a thing. And they stopped doing it. By Snyder 2.0, they weren't doing it.
They were doing it a little bit, because I remember they still, when we were watching game film of them, they still had, I don't know who it was.
I think they did it motion related.
Maybe Baby Gronk was
Gronk. What?
The littlest Gronk.
Oh, you know what? That's what they would do that with their fullbacks when they brought them up to the line.
I think meant Baby Gronk, that annoying little 9-year-old.
The littlest Gronkowski brother. I don't remember what his first name was, but he was a fullback there. But like they would do the. I mean, it feels like your sternum is very exposed, which is not generally the body part you want to lead with in football. Is like sternum first is not your best choice.
Speak for yourself.
Get your weight up.
That's right.
Yeah, you boys toughen up your sternum. You're playing at K-State. It was a weird thing, but you're right in this. Those tight ends at K-State were known for a long time as being the blockers, and now it's turned into a pretty important part of this offense, and been good enough where you were able to keep a 5-star tight end from going to Oregon or somewhere else.
Sonnet had a pretty big play in the championship game.
Yeah,
catch that pass from a punter.
The balls to run that in your own territory in the AFC Championship game.
He was in our class.
He was an Oklahoma guy.
Yeah,
he had the wankiest direction punt.
Lefty, man,
and that thing came in at like a 30-degree angle when he punts. I don't know how you catch that.
Lefty kicker punters they're weird, man. So Fitz, before Iowa State played Kansas State this last year in football, there was smoke that I think it was Jace Brown was transferring, but then he's like, no, I'm going to stick around. Is he transfer? Like, what's going on there? Is he sticking around? Is he transferring? What was that about?
He was. This is the age of the NIL, and I'm sure it's common in locker rooms now where guys are bitching about their NIL, talking about where they're going to get their next deal from. That kind of nonsense became a distraction in a number of corners in the locker room. And guys, Chris Kleiman's doing something that maybe Iowa State, maybe Coach Campbell's doing it too, that you kind of have to do at this level. And that is turn the NIL inwards and try to retain players.
Yep. That's why Campbell's big on that. Yeah.
And Kleiman's doing it. I think the two are proving it works. And so that got corrected at season's end. But that kind of stuff was a distraction. In fact, another guy pulled it who's no longer on the team. He went into the portal, but basically was told you're not going to be on the 105. He was a starter. So they're trying to get that out. We're not going to do this anymore. We're just not going to tolerate it.
No, that's smart. That's kind of a rumor on the street of why Iowa State lost last year in the bowl game to Memphis, because not that they weren't like focused on the bowl game, but they were more focused on retaining their guys because, last year Iowa State was young and there were a lot of schools that came, for Iowa State, for the starters that, you're at Iowa State, come play for an SEC school. And Campbell's like, I'm more focused on, keeping these guys on the roster. So I think, that's the formula for success.
It's a mess. This whole thing's a mess.
I think this coming year, this next school year will be the first year that like the schools take over. So hopefully, it's not quite as wild westy.
Well, and it's going to get weirder before it gets less weird.
Yeah.
Because with the Department of Education saying that it has to be Title IX compliant, like that's a whole nother can of worms. And like it's going to get weirder before it gets not weird. But I feel like this personally, a guy like Kleiman, a guy like Campbell, a guy like TJ, I'm not going to put Tang in that bucket. Guys that can inspire someone to want to be there, because there's only so many starting spots. There's only so many snaps or minutes to go around. And if you can convince someone that where you are right now, or this is where the best place for you is, you can take a quote pay cut. Because kid, you're 21. You have 60 years of earning potential in your lifetime. You don't need to make the most as long as you make enough. It feels like a guy like Kleiman and TJ and Campbell, regardless of where this goes, I don't think it's going to impact them as much as it will impact guys that are more transactional. Like the guy that comes to mind is Hugh Freeze at Auburn, where a guy that's like, what are you going to do for me? And how can we, make this whatever. Let's maximize the earn, whatever. Like the guys that are paying all of it, like Coach Cal, you're not getting the best guys anymore. Now you actually have to execute on keeping your guys there. So
they kind of stink this year.
Yeah, it's because you can't. It's the same thing that like the reason why the SEC, in my money, didn't win a national title is because in the past, the only way to get to the NBA or the only way to get to the NFL was to go to the place where the scouts are, which is Alabama, Georgia, Florida in football, and it's at Kentucky, it's at UCLA, it's at those places in basketball. Well, now you don't need to go there to make a living. You can go anywhere to make a living. And so now the guys that are winning are the ones that can create a culture that kids want to be at. And that to me feels like Kleiman does that, Campbell does that, TJ does that. And however weird it gets, I don't feel like Kansas State really, if we go through the football programs of the Big 12, it doesn't feel like BYU is going to be that affected. It doesn't feel like Arizona State's going to be that affected. Iowa State, Kansas State, Utah with Whittingham or whoever fills in with Whittingham doesn't feel like they're going to be that affected. Willie Fritz, Houston's going to get better. Like there's a lot of programs that don't feel like they're going to be changed that much. Who knows with Colorado when
we'll see. We'll see with Colorado.
Who knows with Colorado? Who knows with West Virginia? But yeah, I don't know that there's not a question there, but it just sort of feels like the way that
UCF, man, I forgot Scott Frost.
Scott, dude, he's either going to win 10 or 2.
It's going to be 2. It's going to be a train wreck.
No way he's going to go
5
and 7. He is going 2 and 10 or 11 and 1. Like there is no middle ground with Scott Frost.
So Jeff, you had said that TJ, Kleiman, and Campbell were all in the same bucket, but Tang was not. What bucket would you put Tang in?
The dingus bucket?
Oh, the old dingy bucket.
The old dingus bucket.
Look, you know what is funny about that is he should be in there. And I've been
for the dingy bucket.
I'm not in the dingy bucket.
I mean, he wants to be in the good bucket.
In the good bucket.
Splice that, make it look like Fitz is in the dingy bucket.
that would be one of those clips you'd say. He says he's in the dingy bucket.
Well, Fitz said
it. That's the kind of guy he is, and yet I've been making this comparison. It's almost like the NIL and portal felt like a cheat code. Like I can skip steps and get to where I need to go because it worked in the first year, and it hasn't worked. Now he's got to go back to that, and I think we'll see that. But you're right. At this level where the Big 12's at, the simple truth is if it's about a bidding war, you're not going to win. Basketball maybe, but not anything else. Football, nobody's winning around here many bidding wars, depending on the player. I'm not totally familiar with the numbers that he was offered, but I think Avery Johnson took K-State at pretty much a similar bid because the value to him being an in-state guy to Kansas State exceeded bringing in a 4-star quarterback to Oregon or Notre Dame or the other schools he was looking at. So I find the use of the NIL, what we might value may not be what they value. But at the end of the day, if you're Will Howard, his value exceeded what K-State could get from him. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
He could have been a really good quarterback, but they weren't going to win a national championship with Will Howard.
What are your thoughts on Will Howard? Like from a Kansas State, kind of an ex-Kansas State player, he played magnificent in the playoffs.
Yeah, he did.
He was okay during the year. Like I mean, okay by Ohio State standards. You got the best receiver in the country. You got two other guys that are going to be, NFL players.
Probably
at least
6 other guys. We only saw 2 play. Yeah,
we just saw 2 of them play. But anyway, but when he got to the playoffs, it was terrific. What are your thoughts? Because we actually had this conversation about Tyrese Hunter a while back that like he went from Iowa State to Texas, and then everyone booed the hell out of him. Like the amount of F-bombs on the broadcast when Texas came back to Ames, crazy. But now that he's at Memphis, it feels like Iowa State fans are starting to root for Tyrese Hunter again. Where does Will Howard fit in the kind of the post-Kansas State? Are they rooting for him? Is it sort of how dare you leave?
Most K-Staters have been really supportive.
Okay.
I compared it to not a divorce, but kind of an agreed separation. Will found someone with more money to be with, and Kansas State found a younger quarterback who had more moves. It's just like both parties were happy with that. Like I said, K-State wasn't prepared to pay Will what he probably wanted, and Will really wasn't looking to transfer. He was looking for his next step to the NFL, whether that was the draft and going to the Senior Bowl or playing somewhere. And honestly, he fell in love with Ryan Day in Ohio State when he went on that visit. And I think the money was right. And there we go. And amazing. I never thought we'd think of Ohio State as a little guy, but here we are.
Well, I wouldn't say the little guy. I would say in this separation agreement, they're Brad Pitt. They just, went for someone younger.
It's more Leo.
That's what I meant.
There you go.
Doggone it. Screwed that up.
All right, we're gonna edit that out. We're gonna nail the punchline.
No, it's gotta stay. It's gotta stay. Gotta stay.
Kansas State was like Leonardo DiCaprio.
They wanted Django.
That's all I've got for
There's
him.
the joke.
Not sure we got anything else.
I mean, we'll be in touch with Fitz at least one other time before heading out to the good old Dublin. You're going out there. I'm probably not, because we have she'll be 2, and then hard to take a 2-year-old around Ireland in a 9-hour flight out there. But
you can't hold your own beer.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, she could.
I'm not sure if I'll be out there or not. We'll see if any of these 17 leg parlays hit. If they do, I'll probably be out there.
Yeah. I'm worried about Dublin. I'm worried about Dublin because I think the combination of Kansas State fans and Iowa State fans and the volume with which they're capable of drinking beer might shock the Irish.
I feel like if there's a place, though, that can withstand that kind of sonic boom of beer, Dublin might be it.
It's like I'm also Chocolate Factory bringing in just chocoholics.
Yes, exactly. But I'm also worried about K-State and Iowa State fans because there won't be Busch Light. There won't be Bud Light. There won't be any of that watered down. And so if some of you drink Ultra, just don't tell me about it. They'll be drinking Guinness, and they'll be drinking things that'll kick you in the shorts a little bit harder. This is going to be kind of a showdown here between
the last man standing.
Yeah. I don't know who's going to win. I suspect it's Dublin. They've been a world champion for a long time.
Yeah. If I go, Fitz, and I see you there, I'm going to challenge you to a Guinness chug off.
Okay.
I feel like this is just in Dublin. And I don't know. I think Grant has different feelings towards Kansas State than I do, but it feels like Kansas State and Iowa State they're siblings who you do not sit next to each other in the car because they're just going to beat the shit out of each other constantly. Mm-hmm. But then you get to wherever place they're going, and if someone picks on the other one, you're like, hey, no. You don't get to hate. We get to hate them. You don't get to hate them. Knock it off. And it feels like Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Tech, and Iowa State are kind of like, and I feel like Arizona State is ingratiating themselves, at least in my mind, with Kenny D into that sort of like the group of like, hey, we're in the back of the station wagon. We hate the hell out of each other, but you don't get to hate us. We get to hate each other. That feels to me like what Kansas State is with Iowa State.
And I agree. And then cousin KU shows up.
And can you not just,
we're all on board together.
For me, it's me and Kansas. I'm holding one leg, Kansas is holding the other, while we are giving Kansas State a swirly. That's my. See,
that was a shocking statement.
I feel like we have different perceptions. I would say this is perhaps sacrilege. Bill Self is hard to dislike now. Like, I don't know if Bill in his old age or older age, he's not, 40 anymore. He is much less cantankerous and much more complimentary. So it feels like Bill is, I don't know. I've warmed to Bill a little bit.
I think Bill, I've always liked Bill. I pissed K-Staters off of that. First of all, he's an incredible coach.
Yeah.
He knows how to work the refs. He knows how to work the system. But everyone who knows him off the court say, first of all, he can be a dick once in a while, but for the most part, he's a really good dude. And if you just hang out and talk to him, you're going to like him.
Very charismatic.
Yeah.
I wouldn't give you a swirly though, Fitz. Yeah, nothing.
Yes, I would be ineffective. This thing would probably clean the toilet.
There we go.
Amen, man. Amen, my brother.
Well, we appreciate your time, Fitz. It's always good to talk to you. And Iowa State and Kansas State, they play 2 more times. Well, I guess two more times, I guess, technically. So we might have you on again later on in the year. We'll see. Can I get a prediction from you on the game on Saturday?
Hold on. K-State game?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That is sorry. I'm so screwed up what day of the week it is. Oh, I think Iowa State by teens.
It's probably
I don't know. I mean, I was shocked to see Vegas always knows. Vegas had K-State favored against West Virginia.
That is wild.
It was wild.
Williams, who runs Cyclone, he always says if you see something odd like that, lean into it.
Yeah, well, I didn't.
I didn't. I
trust myself more than Vegas. That's why I'm broke.
Well, we appreciate your time, man. It's always good to have you on. Always good to talk with you.
Good to see you, boys.
Yeah, you too. We'll reach back out later on.
You should just call me and chat about stuff.
I'll FaceTime you.
I get lonely.
All right.
Oh, well, you're welcome here.
Good to see you.
That was our friend Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowercat.
GoPowercat.
Covering Kansas State Athletics for 247 Sports. Always good to have him on. Tim's a good guy. Been through a lot in his life, but always good spirits. Always good to talk to him.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun because he has a pretty sober look on Kansas State Athletics, where he obviously, I feel like it's similar to Williams in that you obviously have a rooting interest, but you can stay pretty impartial. And if something's bad, go, that sucks.
He is, and I'll say this with all confidence, he is the only Kansas State person I can handle on social media. He doesn't sugarcoat things. If things aren't going well, he'll say, yeah, like these guys suck. He doesn't drink the Kool-Aid, and Kansas State fans are mad. Oh, what are you talking about? You cover Kansas State. You suck. He ruffles a lot of feathers in Manhattan, but he doesn't get what he does.
Wildcats don't have feathers.
No, they don't.
They have fur.
Yeah.
Does he ruffle the fur?
No, they
Wildcats don't exist.
tarred and then
Made up
feathered.
animal.
Wait a second. Whoa. Wildcats are a made up animal.
Yeah. Wildcat.
No, not.
What? Bobcat. I mean, is a bobcat a wildcat?
Bobcats are real.
It's
Is a wildcat? Is it a wild
It's a wild
space
space cat, then yeah.
But one word of wildcat.
Yeah. I guess you could turn it into a bobcat, but why not just be the bobcats then?
Bobcats.
That was our friend Tim Fitzgerald. Thanks again for coming on. Yeah, good game by the Clones last night too. Tough first half, but they end up pulling out the win, 81-77. So it's good to see the Clones go 2-0.
Love had a good game though. He's
down
a
in
good
Arizona. He did. They are good. But man, I mean, you can't say enough good things about Jiggy, and Keyshawn just steps up when you need him.
Well, and just like Schuster called, chat 10-7 tonight.
Big game.
It's important.
Big game by Brant. So, anything else?
A wildcat is Scotland's most threatened mammal.
There you go.
Hey,
So they
Dick.
are real.
How do you feel about that?
Big cat.
You just talked trash about an endangered species.
Scotland's not America's.
Yeah, if it's not American, it doesn't matter.
Thank you to all of our loyal listeners who are still listening. And as always, remember, adopt. Don't shop.